In today's video, we'll be explaining what actually happened to everyone from Vault 112. But before we talk about the people trapped in virtual reality pods, we need to talk about Dr. Stanislaus Braun, who controlled those simulations, because it's more important than you think. The man behind the vault. Most vaults in the Fallout universe were built to perform experiments on survivors, and Vault-Tec and the Enclave were supposed to monitor them and collect data for their own goals. Vault 112, however, was seemingly constructed for the amusement of one person, Dr. Stanislaus Braun. The vault was constructed rather late compared to other Vault-Tec projects. The construction was finished in June of 2074, and the vault was supposed to house 85 occupants. The vault dwellers were to be put to sleep and live indefinitely inside a virtual reality world that would simulate a variety of utopias for the inhabitants to experience. But what the vault dwellers were unaware of was that Dr. Braun would have full control over the simulations that they were in. Dr. Stanislaus Braun was the inventor of the Garden of Eden kit, and also the one who designed the simulations for Vault 112's virtual reality pods. Knowing how the simulations turned out in the end, it's not too far-fetched to believe Vault 112 was built as a reward for Dr. Braun's contributions to the invention of the Garden of Eden kit. In the beginning, the vault dwellers went inside the simulations and lived the perfect lives they were promised. But at some point, either Dr. Braun grew bored with the simulations, or the godlike powers he had inside them corrupted him. He started to kill the residents and wipe their memories. He started to manipulate their simulated lives for his own amusement, putting them through tragic experiences, then wiping their memories to do it again and again. This is the state of the simulation, the Tranquility Lane, when the lone wanderer enters it to save their father, the missing vault dwellers. As I mentioned before, Vault 112 was advertised to house 85 people in case of a nuclear fallout. But when we enter the vault, there are only 13 virtual reality pods, and only 10 of them are occupied by the original tenants of the vault. So what happened to the other 75 people who were supposed to be here? The only other residents of the vault, other than the unconscious occupants, are 3 robo-brains in charge of tending to the vault. When they see us enter the vault, they let us know that we are 202.3 years behind schedule. Now, on the surface, that's just them commenting that we are about 2 centuries late to come to the vault. But let's take a closer look at the dates. Fallout 3 takes place in the year 2277. The events of the game from the Lone Wanderer's perspective can't really take more than maybe a few months at most. Based on these facts, the RoboBrain comment means that the vault was probably sealed in 20, about 2 years before the Great War. Is it possible that Dr. Braun and the others chosen by Vault-Tec went into hibernation even before the bombs fell? If true, then perhaps the other 70-something people who were supposed to be here could not make it inside when the nuclear alarms went off, as the vault doors were already sealed shut. Neither the RoboBrains nor any of the terminals mentions the exact date the vault was actually sealed, so we are left wondering if they sealed the vault's doors early, or maybe the RoboBrains are malfunctioning and messing up the dates. Either way, there are a lot of people who were supposed to be housed inside the vault, yet their fate is unknown. The Tranquility Lane simulation. Everyone in the vault, including Dr. Braun, 9 of the original vault's tenants, and the Lone Wanderer's father, James, is in the simulated world called the Tranquility Lane. To safely wake up their father, the Lone Wanderer also needs to enter the simulation, and that's when we see the effects of Dr. Braun's total control over the virtual reality. At first glance, the Tranquility Lane simulation is a perfect pre-war suburban neighborhood. There are 6 houses in the neighborhood, with 10 people in total living there. Dr. Braun himself is simulated as a young girl called Betty. He usually speaks in a sweet, preteen girlish voice, but once we discover his identity, he addresses us in his own voice and German accent. Mabel Henderson is a young woman living alone with a Mr. Handy robot that helps her with house chores. She is friends with Martha Simpson, another young woman who is infatuated with a married man in the neighborhood, Roger Rockwell. Roger and Janet Rockwell have a fragile marriage. Even though Roger has turned down Martha's advances, the couple's issues are the neighborhood's gossip, and Janet is naturally very suspicious and unkind towards Martha. This is the kind of drama Betty, or Dr. Braun, has manifested in the simulated world for his own entertainment. The other family residence belongs to the Nussbaums. George and Pat Nussbaum live here with their son, Timmy. In real life, Timmy is an adult man, but here he is simulated as a young child, and he is one of the only residents of Tranquility Lane who dislikes Betty. He mentions that Betty is a mean girl and makes him cry. And finally, there's Old Lady Dithers. She seems to be the only one who is aware of their true condition and the simulation's nature. She constantly tries to tell the others in the simulation that their world and experiences aren't real, but her neighbors mostly ignore her, believing she is just old and senile. She knows Betty is not really a small girl, and asks the Lone Wanderer to trigger the simulation's failsafe and end their misery. In the vault itself, we can read the biometric data and stress levels of each individual. The most notable terminal is Lady Dithers, which shows an extremely high stress level and multiple anomalies detected. The final resident of Tranquility Lane, before the Lone Wanderer arrives, is a stray dog that wanders the streets alone. As we learn later, this dog is James, the Lone Wanderer's father, who was trapped inside the simulation when he entered the vault to learn more about Braun's research on the Garden of Eden kit, the Lone Wanderer, and their father. Our actions inside the Tranquility Lane simulation can change the fate of Vault 112 residents, but no matter how we proceed, we can save our father and reunite with him. James has spent his life working on Project Purity. After the birth of his child and his wife's passing and being stuck on the project, he decides to leave for Vault 101 to raise his child. However, he still spent most of his time thinking about Project Purity and continuing his research inside the vault. Once the Lone Wanderer became an adult, he left the vault for Rivet City to reconnect with some of his old colleagues and continue their work on Project Purity. Most of them still believed that the project was a dead end, but James had a plan. He had learned of the Garden of Eden kit and how it was a tool developed by Vault-Tec to terraform any environment to be suitable for human survival. He knew Dr. Stanislaus Braun, the inventor of the kit, was supposedly sealed inside Vault 112 after the Great War, and he wanted to see if he could find anything inside the vault that would help him with completing Project Purity. When James entered the vault, he found Dr. Braun, still alive, but in hibernation. So, he decided he would enter the virtual reality pod in hopes of talking to him. What he didn't know was Braun's manipulative and sadistic tendencies, and once inside, he became another prisoner to his games and whims. That's when the Lone Wanderer, in search of their father, finds their way inside Vault 112 and enters the simulation. They manage to escape the simulation, either by doing what Dr. Braun asks and appeasing him, or by listening to Old Lady Dithers and activating the simulation's failsafe. Each path results in a different ending for the people in Vault 112, so let's see what happens to them in each scenario. Appeasing Dr. Braun. Once inside the simulation, Betty asks us to do some tasks for her, and she promises that once we complete them, she will let us out of the Tranquility Lane simulation. The tasks she has for us reveal Dr. Braun's sick tendencies and lack of empathy towards his fellow vault dwellers. The first thing she wants us to do is to make Timmy cry. We can accomplish that in a couple of ways. We can convince him that his parents are getting a divorce because of him. We can show him a brochure for a military school and tell him that his parents are considering sending him to military school. Or we can just murder one of his parents if we are feeling extra cruel. The next task Betty asks of us is to break up the Rockwell's marriage. We can do that by convincing Janet that Roger is cheating on her with Martha. We can place Martha's underwear on Roger's desk and tell Janet about it. Or we can again go with the murdering option. Kill Martha and blame it on Janet. The next task is to kill Ms. Henderson in a creative way, as Betty puts it. We can rig a chandelier to fall on her, put a skateboard on top of the stairs so she falls down, or lock her inside her house and hack her Mr. Handy robot to activate its security program and have it kill her. And finally, Betty wants us to put on the pint-sized slasher mask and go on a killing spree with the slasher knife, killing anyone still alive in Tranquility Lane, putting an end to this round of simulation in the most horrifying way. Once we do these tasks, Braun lets the Lone Wanderer and James out of the virtual reality pods. We are free to go, leaving everyone still alive in their pods. This basically allows Dr. Braun to restart the simulation with everyone and keep tormenting them over and over again, possibly forever. Activating the failsafe. When talking to Old Lady Dithers, she tells us that there is a failsafe that will end the simulations, putting an end to their lives and their constant torment under Braun's control. She begs us to figure out how to activate the failsafe and put an end to their misery. She points us to an abandoned house on the edge of the neighborhood. Inside, we find several broken items that we can interact with. Each item emits a note when we use it, and we can replicate the Tranquility Lane theme music. The same tune that we can hear Betty whistle to herself if we stay idly near her long enough. Activating the items in the correct order will access a hidden terminal and activate the simulation's failsafe. The failsafe inside the simulation causes a Chinese invasion force to show up and kill everyone in the neighborhood. It's still a horrible fate for the residents of Tranquility Lane, but it's a kinder end compared to the alternative. Once we leave the simulation, we can check the terminals monitoring everyone. They have all passed away, except for Dr. Stanislaus Brown, Dr. Stanislaus Brown's fate. Dr. Brown survives the simulation's failsafe. His body is still intact, and he is still in the virtual reality he created for himself. However, a side effect of the simulation's failsafe is that he loses the control he had over them. So, in the end, he is still trapped in the Tranquility Lane simulation, without his victims to play with and entertain himself, and without any control over the simulated world. We don't know how the simulation kept going, and how advanced the system is, but I like to think he remains as Betty in the Tranquility Lane neighborhood, having to constantly hide from the Chinese invasion force and evading their wrath forever. He was one of the most notable scientists working at Vault-Tec, helping them design the inhumane experiments that they would run on unsuspecting innocent people. And as his final project, he built Vault 112, a virtual reality world where he had all the control in the world and no consequences to his action, at least until the lone wanderer listened to the old lady Dithers and put an end to 2 centuries of cruelty against the other 9 people inside the vault. Even though he invented the Garden of Eden kit, a tool that helped a lot of people survive the aftermath of the Great War, his contributions to Vault-Tec caused a lot more despair among the vault dwellers all across the United States. One could say his bad karma finally caught up to him. If you enjoyed this video and want to see what actually happened to everyone from Vault 111, click the video on screen.